Hello, and welcome to Music Maps, the Rock and Roll Book Club podcast. In each episode, we use a place as a jumping off point for a conversation about music, anywhere from the obvious to the obscure.
Yeah, so around the time of the Amsterdam trip, there's an interview that Noel and Liam have with John Harris, NME writer. Yeah. And this is before the album comes out. And this interview, which is, well, what we now know of Noel and Liam, as two very argumentative brothers, is released on John's record label, Fierce Panda, Whibbling Rivalry.
I bought this on a CD single. I was such an Oasis fan at this point.
Yeah,
now,
it's the highest charting spoken word record.
Incredible. We always like
even
to
more
mention,
than William Shatner.
We always like to mention Fierce Panda because not half a mile from where I'm standing, their offices used to be based. Because Simon was in Walthamstow, and their offices, listeners, were next to where the current Labour MP Stella Creasy's offices are in
Orford Road,
Walthamstow Village. Anyway, tell us about having to deal with that record coming out. Did you see that as were you happy with that? Do you see it as material to get more stories? Are you happy that John Harris and his mates are on side? How are you feeling about this?
I mean, sort of John and Simon asked us whether they could release it.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were like, yeah, definitely. It's really funny. Okay. And it shows them, in one of their finest moments, really. We were totally up for it, and also totally up for supporting John and Simon in their mission to bring new music out. If Whibbling Rivalry had not done so well, we might not have had Super Furry Animals or all the other great records that they brought out. But I suppose that means that we're complicit in the success of Coldplay.
We are, indeed.
So I'm really sorry about that.
Made here in Walthamstow, their first release was made right here. But it feels like Noel Gallagher specifically was always fully aware of the value of the press. Were some of the stories that you were fed not true?
Oh, I couldn't possibly say that.
or certainly exaggerated?
Possibly.
I'm thinking of a trip to Glen Eagles here.
Yeah, well, all of those stories. I mean, going back to the checklist, you want artists that generate great stories. You want good stories to give to the press for, news stories to get those important lead stories in NME and Melody Maker back in the day. And really from that very first time I met them at the creation offices, I knew that they would deliver and through hanging out with them in Manchester a lot in 1993, they're just the kind of people around whom stuff just happens, right? So once I clocked that, which was very early on, I said, look, anytime anything interesting happens, phone me. And so
they're ringing you every day at this point.
Several times a day. Noel will call me. You'll never guess what happened, right? And sometimes the stories would be true. Sometimes the stories would obviously be true. Sometimes you're thinking, this is probably not true, but I so wish that it was true.
Yeah.
And I know that if I speak to any journalists, they will similarly want this to be true. It's too good not to be true. It's
the Mario Balotelli of music here, where there's so many entertaining stories coming out, and you just hope that they're true, but some probably are and some aren't.
It sort of doesn't matter whether they're true or not.
Yeah. It's all part of the story, isn't it?
It fits with who they are, and it fits with our understanding of who they are. So, So yeah, I mean, I used to get these calls several times a day, plus all the stuff that I saw with my own eyes as they were happening, and they all went into a notebook or a series of notebooks, which are stashed very safely in a bank vault, maybe. So yeah, I mean, again, they were hitting all the kind of requirements that you want from
Yeah. So for context, some recent number one singles had included Wigfield, Shekademus and Pliers with a cover of Twist and Shout, and of course Wet Wet Wet, number one for 16 weeks.
Oh,
so
man, that was an awful record.
So this is the musical landscape of the spring of 1994. So Supersonic comes out April the 11th of 94. It's preceded by their first TV appearance on The Word. Was Bring It On Down almost the first single?
Yes, it was. I mean, we were all up for that being the single. Obviously, it made a real impression on me on that very first day, back in, 1st of June 1993. Would have been a perfect first single. But then Noel had come up with Supersonic. And Supersonic was also a great statement of intent. And, we went with that. And, I mean, Noel really wanted to put that one out, and we were absolutely happy with that.
Were you at The Word?
Yes. Yeah.
How was it?
It was electric. It was seriously electric. I mean, any band on their first TV performance, it's a massive moment for them, and it's really exciting, knowing that you're going to be potentially in front of millions of people. The Word was a great program.
I loved The Word when I was a kid, because we had Terry here a couple of years ago to do a live event, and he was saying the target market was people who were not yet old enough to go out, so you were stuck at home on a Friday.
Yeah.
And that was me. I watched it religiously for years. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and Terry's such a great presenter and such a great human being, and he'll call out people that are bags.
Yeah.
And in an industry that's full of people that fawn over all sorts of idiots, Terry Christian speaks out, and all power to him.
Now, despite all this,
sorry, and The Word, brilliant TV. It upturned a lot of ways of doing music TV. It presented Huggy Bear in that really brilliant, powerful moment. In 94, wasn't it? That would have been 94, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was electric. And you remember how Liam had a cine camera that he was sort of pointing at the crowd. I just wish that they'd been filming the camera.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. So there wasn't. I feel like Liam's performance on The Word is kind of different to all the other recorded performances of Oasis, because it's not quite the Liam Gallagher that
he was more animated, wasn't he? And because he had the camera, he had a prop that drew him more into the audience.
It's not quite the Liam Gallagher you come to know very well in the next few years, which is basically the same every time.
It was a loose, exciting, raw performance. And I felt really lucky to be there in that room,
Now, it wasn't so long before, so many months prior to this, that the way Oasis are still playing to hardly anybody, people in Leeds at the Duchess, and yet come back forward a few months and they're selling the place out. So how did you get the word out about the band, and how quickly did it spread?
Well, I mean, I've been laying the groundwork in 1993, but asking people not to write about them, which is kind of an unusual situation to be in. And people did hold to it, and I respect them for that. But once we got the deal done and we got all our ducks in a row, we started pulling in the coverage, and we knew that Paul Mather at the Melody Maker absolutely loved them, and he was the first person I spoke to back in 1993, and I took him up to see him rehearse at the Boardwalk. again in 1993. But I said, look, please leave it 6 months, and you can do the first interview, which he did. And we'd also warmed up NME, and, we were talking to The Face and Select and publications like that. But people just needed to hear the music and meet them, and go to the shows, and it all kind of grew nicely and organically from there. Had to keep the brakes on because everyone was getting very excited.
Yeah. From the year before at this venue, the Duchess in Leeds, no one there, absolutely no one there. Yeah. And the band just treat it as a rehearsal. Yeah. And here we are the week of Supersonic and it's full. So
yeah.
The trajectory is clearly going upward quite rapidly.
It was massive. And I think, the word happened during that tour, didn't it? And
yes.
we had pieces in ID and Enemy and Melody Maker, and quite a lot of other stuff going on press-wise. And the record went in at 31, didn't it?
Yes,
it was quite a big achievement for a debut record, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. If you go into the top 10 on your first record, there's not much further you can go. If you have, if you get the band on the front of a Enemy or a Melody Maker for the first single, again, it felt to me a bit too much. So I was very
Some of
conscious.
the bands of this era who went that hard, that quick, ended up, it didn't really work, did it?
Well, exactly, Menswear.
Yeah. That's the one I was thinking of, yeah.
But it worked pretty good for Suede, but I think it's just, I don't know, I think it's quite a hard adjustment for musicians or for anybody to be that prominently in the press from nowhere. From a mental health point of view, I don't think it's necessarily a good route. So we just built it up organically over time, and keeping the brakes on, and also all the while trying to keep the band away from the other British groups.
So Shaker Maker, it becomes the second single and brings the first Top of the Pops appearance. Yeah. And that year, the band plays Glastonbury as well, the following week, in fact. Now, tell us about the decision not to promote the band to the usual creation markets, and instead aim for fans who perhaps weren't familiar with the label.
We were looking at both bases. We wanted to build from the creation base, and that's why we stuck out 7-inch singles in clear plastic, fold around sleeves in a plastic wallet, like people were doing in the mid-'80s, like Creation did in the mid-'80s. So we wanted that creation audience, but we knew that Oasis would go way beyond that.
Yeah.
The
memory I have of this is in the mid-'90s, all the music fans initially all loved Oasis that first couple of years. And then once they became huge, Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, they all suddenly said, oh, they're rubbish. And I would say to them, but you liked them 6 months ago. So,
all the cool kids loved Oasis in 94,
they did.
And
95. And my first Oasis gig, Earls Court, November 5th, 95, all the cool kids were there. And then within a year, by the time you get to Nebworth, and it's suddenly people who are much more casual, perhaps, all those people suddenly don't like them anymore. And I've always found that mentality, a strange one in music, where people are like, there are people who come to our events who don't like anyone who's commercially successful. So they just cross all the, the Beatles, Queen, Oasis, they just cross them all off their list because they're popular. I just find that such a strange mentality. I'd be like, well, you know what? You loved them that first year, so why do you, what happened?
Yeah, it's an attitude that's rife in music, in music journalism,
Yes, it is.
in fan. I saw them initially as a kind of acid house band.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you listen to Columbia,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
if you listen to Supersonic, those songs have that vibe.
Yeah.
If you listen to Live Forever, the lyrics are pure acid house.
Right,
They're
yeah, okay.
positive, uplifting, utopian. You know,
The Gallagher brothers are both on record saying that most of their friends were more into dance music, and there was only a few of them that were interested in guitar bands.
But Oasis did a couple of acid house covers in their early days.
Yeah.
Never
yeah.
released.
Yeah, yeah.
But they did them.
I had the bootlegs.
Yeah.
I don't know of these. Which records did they cover?
There's one called Better Let You Know, which
Yes.
was like a Belgian house track.
Okay.
And then there was another one that I can't remember the name of. But
Those early boardwalk recordings, I think there's a couple of those. Yeah. So,
I'm just trying to, in my head, you see, I don't know why, when you mentioned that, I was Larry Heard's, Mr. Fingers Oasis cover. But no, it's not that. I can
but
get
it
rid
did
of that
end up
memory.
getting.
if you think there's that Joe Smooth record, Promised Land,
Yeah.
right? Is it a million miles lyrically?
The sentiments are the same. Yeah,
Right.
get that.
And they did get covered in.
You can find that positivity in a lot of Oasis tracks.
They do end up getting covered in Mix Mag, which feels to me like an unusual place for an indie band, I guess, as they are at this stage.
Yeah,
to get some coverage.
That was part of my strategy. Was, prior to Oasis coming along, I was working with a lot of dance music and listening to a lot of dance music and going out to clubs and everything. But I was a rock and roll kid at heart, and I was always looking for one last great rock and roll band to come along. And the Valentines hadn't followed up on Loveless, and the Stone
Roses hadn't either. Or the Lars, or
and the Primals, all of those bands, were not delivering for their own particular reasons. And I just thought there is one room for one last rock and roll band, and it'll be a rock and roll band that can connect to all the dance kids, all the kids who have made that journey from rock and roll to dance music. And I phoned up the late, great Dom Phillips, who sadly died a couple of years ago in Brazil. In fact, not died, murdered. And he I'm not sure whether he was the editor at that moment or the reviews editor, and said, "Look, I've got this rock and roll record for you." And he stopped me dead and went, "This is a dance mag. We're not going to cover it. Don't bother trying to pitch to me." And I go, "Fair enough, but can I send it to you and see what you think? I won't pitch to you. I'm going to send it to you with a press release, see what you think." And so I sent it, and he phoned up and goes, "I fucking love it. Now I can see why you want it in the magazine, and why you think it's appropriate." And of course, they got 10 out of 10, which was the best. Definitely maybe a review. All the other reviews were like 8 or 9 out of 10.
Right.
But Mix Mag was 10 out of 10. And that shows me for sure that they were, part of all of that. Also, when I used to hang out with them in Manchester in 93 and sort of early 94, we didn't go to the indie clubs.
Right, yeah.
We went to the Hacienda or the Paradise Factory, which were dance clubs. And similarly, when they started spending more time in London, we weren't going. Well, I think we went to Blow Up once and the Falcon once, but you'd find us more likely at the Heavenly Social or Sabersonic, Andy Weatherall's club. Mm-hmm. Or Thunderground, which was the club run by one of the groups signed to the Infant label, the Creation Techno label. Or going to Goldie's Metalheads a little bit later, you know. So that the dance music history of Oasis is an untold story.
Yeah, absolutely is. Because, and like I said, I think they probably came from that background. You know, Noah was on record saying he liked to go to Hacienda, etc. And I think a lot of their friends where they'd grown up and were living were probably a lot closer to that world than they would have been.
Yeah.
It was inescapable in Manchester in that late 80s, early 90s period. And it seems, I don't know, the crossover makes sense to me. I guess I was one of those people who, I wasn't reading Mix Mag, but I was reading Jockey Slut as well as the NME.
It's really important.
And you can see the fit there. So, no, that's interesting. So how did promoting Oasis compare with the previous creation acts you may have worked with, such as Primal Scream or the Jesus and Mary Chain?
Well, I think I do see definite parallels between Oasis and the Primals and the Mary Chain, because they're kind of rock and roll bands with everything that phrase implies, you know, in terms of the music and everything else, you know. And obviously the Mary Chain have two battling brothers, much like Noel and Liam.
Have you read the Never Understood book this year?
No, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Mary Chain fan, and I think Ben Thompson is a fantastic writer.
He's done a great job on this. I think you will enjoy it. We'll just say.
Undoubtedly.
My only criticism, I wanted another 100 pages.
Right. Well, that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, it still told me a lot. Well, big fans of White Rabbit who bring it out, big fans of Ben. But it was good to be able to read their side of the story. Some of it we're familiar with, because obviously Alan has shared some of it, but there are new slants. So, yeah, very good job. For me, the key thing, Johnny, is the excitement. I mean, as I said at the outset, it must have been utterly thrilling to be part of this.
It was everything that I wanted when I was growing up as a music obsessive.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, the chance to be, I suppose, wherever I went with them, I was always thinking, what would Andrew do, as in Andrew Lou Golden?
Yeah.
And what would Malcolm do, as in Malcolm McLaren? And I would go around with John Savage's book, England's Dreaming. I carried it with me on tour, and as a reference book, really, as a reference point, really. And I've still got that copy of the book, but it's completely fallen apart.
Mine's fallen to bits.
It's full of notes and little ideas of what I could apply.
Of course, the Simon Spence's Stoned and Stoned 2 books wouldn't have been out by then. I'm sure you've read them.
They came a little later.
Early 2000s, I think.
But I kind of, being a big Stones fan, I really kind of focused in on Andrew and Andrew's whole persona and way of doing things. So even though the books weren't there yet, I knew a lot of the little kind of moves that Andrew had played.
You sound, I mean, I don't know why. I love the bands. I love the music. But for me, the Alan McGee's, the Tony Wilsons, the Malcolm McLarens, the Andrew Lou Goldman, these crazy managers, the mercurial types have always fascinated me as much as my favourite band.
Me too, absolutely. You know.
And that's the kind of direction I've always been a rubbish musician, but always played in bands. Always been a rubbish musician. And actually, I don't know to hold a candle, never pretended to. But you can't help but be certainly inspired, and to some extent be a little guided by what those people did.
I was very, very much aware of what Alan had done with the Mary Chain, and also what Laurence, who was the Mary Chain's press officer, had done. You know, and you know, also contemporary figures like Jeff Barrett. You know, so I was kind of you know, those people were really inspirational for me. And, you know, Laurence worked at Creation when I started, and she was just so brilliant and amazing.
I don't think Simon's got this in the questions. But one of the questions I wanted to ask was, dealing with the music press is one thing. That's an animal you well understand, because you've been reading it all your life. Yeah. But then the other side of this, when Oasis become tabloid and mainstream, how different was that? I mean, in my head, I'm journalist to journalist, I'm not decrying their professionalism, but we kind of have this sense, or I have this sense, you're in the Sun or the Daily Mirror, people like Dominic Thingy and Piers Morgan, the Bazaar, and it's a different, far different, more, I don't know, hungry beast. How hard was it to translate or deal with that? And did it require a different skill set?
Yeah, I would say that it did, but I suppose it sort of boils down to understanding what the different publications needed and how you needed to deal with them. And also, you know, more important than that, understand what the band needed, you know, profile-wise and, you know, personally.
Were the Kevin Cummins photos of Liam and Noel in Man City shirts, was that deliberate, or did that just happen organically? To try and get that audience involved?
Yeah, no, it wasn't done deliberately from that point of view. I mean, we did speak with the football magazines, and they did do interviews for football magazines. Maybe not all of them, but
Noel Gallagher now still does quite a lot of football-related stuff.
Yeah, and stuff on TV and everything.
He commentated on a match a few weeks ago.
He did, didn't he? Yeah.
They got beat 4-1. It was quite funny.
I've not watched that, but I think I need to see that because I'm sure there's a lot of bleeps in it. But, you know, the football magazines were important to, really important to the picture. And the football audience was important to that picture.
Would a football fan have come to see a guitar band prior to Oasis in that period? I'm thinking probably not.
I mean, football AM these days, it's part of everyone's strategy, isn't it? If you're in Blossoms, you're going to go on football AM. You know.
Well, it is post-Euro 96, but this is 1994.
Yeah,
this is before that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the football fans were going to see the Mondays and the Roses in the late 80s, early 90s. Football fans were, you know, perhaps going to see the Primals to an extent during that time. Would they see a new indie band? Maybe not, you know.
Maybe not. It's an interesting one.
But you know, we did court the football magazines because it made total sense, you know.
It was what they wanted to talk about.
Yeah, of course. And it was natural for them to wear Man City kits. And of course, it was a gift that at that particular moment in time, Brother Computers were the sponsor.
Yeah, of course.
And that's why that Kevin Cummins shot is so magical. Yeah. And of course, he had a vested interest in it because he was a fan himself too. Yeah. You know, so I think, you know, did they turn up wearing them? Possibly. Did he arrive with a couple of kits for them to wear? Possibly.
We will ask Kevin next time we see him.
Either way, no one was arguing about it. Yeah. And even me as a Spurs fan was like, fair enough. You know, this will make the perfect picture. You know?
So the third single, Live Forever, breaks the top 10. There's a number of legendary gigs around this time, the Barrowlands in Glasgow, the Adelphi in Hull we've mentioned. Yeah. So what happened at this gig at the Riverside in Newcastle the day after Live Forever is released? And what level of notoriety have the band now created?
one of the sort of downsides of being forthright, if you're in the public eye, can come back and get you.
Yeah.
You
Very
know,
true.
and this happened to the Mary chain when, you know, there were stories going out there that their gigs end up in riots. It then creates a riot. And you were getting people at Mary chain shows that were turning up just to fight, not to listen to the music at all.
Same with the two-tone gigs in the 70s.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, there was more of a political dimension to the two-tone thing. But yeah, definitely. And maybe the guy that got in a fight in Newcastle just came to cause trouble.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was an Oasis fan that was out of his mind. It's hard to tell.
There was a rumour he was a Sunderland fan who was not happy about proceedings, but I don't think you'll ever fully track it all down, I don't think.
Because I think that was the night where Noel came on stage and said something in favour of Newcastle United because they were playing in Europe. It might not have been that gig. It might.
I can tell you when that was because I was in the crowd. It was Newcastle Arena, autumn '97. Be Here Now.
Right.
Newcastle were playing that same night at home to Barcelona.
That's it.
The atmosphere in the city with Barcelona and Oasis there was just electric. And I'd queued up overnight outside the arena with a group of my friends. There's about 12, 15 of us in the summer, and we queued up and got our tickets. And the way it fell, and Liam was wearing a long-sleeved Newcastle shirt. And there are some photos of this that have existed. And when they came on, they won the game 3-2. Asprilla scored a hat-trick. Mm-hmm. And when they came on, Noel told the crowd they were winning 2-0. So it might have been that same night. But yeah, but that's the link to Newcastle for me anyway. But,
yeah. So, I mean, obviously it all went off in '94 in Newcastle. And
so what actually happened?
Well, I'm just trying to remember, but I think I think someone in the crowd threw something.
I think someone might have got on the stage.
Got on the stage and maybe tried to hit Noel or one of the other members of the band.
Yeah.
Noel sorted it out with Johnny Marr's guitar.
Yes.
Which, got broke. But, I mean, on the face of it, for other bands, that could have been a really negative story. But, you know, fortunately, Jo Wiley was there and she got the scoop and it made Radio 1 love Oasis all the more.
Yeah.
Now, the pace of things is just incredible. So there are triumphant shows at the Kentish Town Forum and the Astoria, like 2 days apart. In the middle day, they're on Top of the Pops with Live Forever. And then the album is finally released on August the 29th, 1994. Now, it becomes the fastest selling album in British history. There's been a sense for these gigs and everything that's happening. It's going to be a huge success. But surely what happened to it exceeded everyone's expectations. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we all thought it was possible.
Yeah.
But like the reality of it, or you know, the chances of it happening, you can't say for sure it's going to happen.
No.
All the ducks were lined up really nicely across press and radio and live and TV and all of that. But you just don't know when it comes to it. I mean, that they were up against the Three Tenors, weren't they?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. A total curveball, and this is why you could see, had fate intervened in a different way, it's an album that stalls at number 2. Anyway, it didn't happen. It becomes the fastest selling debut.
Yeah, and you know, as you know, in the week between the record being released and the chart coming out, you get the midweek sales, and the midweek sales can be bang on accurate, or they can be completely off, and you just don't know. It's a bit like polling for elections, political elections, right? And these things can be deceptive. But I can't remember what the midweeks were. They were certainly encouraging. I don't know whether it said Three Tenors or Oasis, but in the end, Oasis won out. But the story with that is that they had, the charts came out on a Sunday back then, not Friday. And on the Saturday, they played in Dublin. So their first gig in Ireland. So quite an emotional homecoming for them, undoubtedly. And then the next night they played in Belfast, right? So, the Dublin gig was off the scale. It was amazing. I took Select Magazine on that particular trip. And then they played in Dublin on the Sunday. And me and the journalist, I don't know what happened to the photographer. I'm sure it's just me and the journalist travelled by train. From the moment I got up on the Sunday morning, I was trying to find out what had happened to the record. And of course, no email. I had a mobile phone, but it wasn't working properly because it was in Dublin, I think. And I think the range of mobile phones were not international in the way that they are now. Yeah. So I called from the hotel, couldn't get hold of Marcus or anyone from Creation. Then we got a cab to the train station. I went straight into a phone box to find out. Got hold of Marcus, said, "Any news?" He was like, "No." We picked up our tickets, thought we'd better go through the barrier, but we had like about 5 minutes to spare. And I thought, right, I'm going to run back to that phone box and go back through the barriers, run to that. I have to know. I have to know, and I have to know now. Phone Marcus up, and he said, "Yeah, it's number one." I went, "Fucking yeah," and then just legged it through the barriers, back onto the train, just in time before the train went off. And obviously, me and the journalist celebrated on the train, but we're just aching to tell the band.
Yeah, what a moment!
No, but we had to wait like more than an hour. The train journey and then a cab to the venue to tell the band.
That's fantastic. Do you think people who couldn't relate to grunge were waiting for a band like Oasis?
Yeah, I think so, because, and again, this goes back a little bit to that acid house vibe, is that Oasis were all positivity.
Yeah.
And
feels like the themes of this record are something that will appeal.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to be miserable, but it was time for a bit of fun.
So September 1994, like every band, they make their debut in America. Was the ambition for so many bands to play and break America?
The first gig's in Seattle, but how does this US tour pan out generally?
Well, it's a complicated one, really, because I mean they
to say the least.
To say the least, yeah, indeed. They'd done a gig in New York in June before the album came out at CMJ, and it gone down really well. Apart from a grunge head who made the mistake of getting into an argument with Liam.
Yes, yeah. Never a good idea.
Never a good idea. I mean, it didn't end in blows, but it was a verbal feast of words.
So what happens at this gig at the Whiskey A Go-Go?
Prior to going to America, immediately prior to going to America, they'd had 2 weeks in Japan, right, where it was pure Beatlemania, and I was there for that, saw all that. And it was truly one of the most incredible things I've seen in my time in music, right? But they went from that pure adulation to the hard grind of America. Their flight from Japan to America involved crossing time zones, right? It was also Liam's birthday.
Right.
So because of the time zones, he ended up celebrating his 21st birthday twice.
Yeah.
In an abstemious way, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it was Hail Marys and rosary beads and the whole lot. And so they ended up in America a little bit jaded, I would say. And by the time they got to LA, it all kind of went a little bit wrong. And they were trying things they hadn't tried before, and it might have something to do with Brian Jonestown massacre, allegedly.
Right.
Allegedly.
There is an account in the great Mark Lanigan book, actually, about their first meeting with Oasis. And the other fine book from this year, Joel Guion, in the Jingle Jangle Jungle. I have to mention these things, Johnny, because it's what we're about.
Well, I think Joel may have played a primary role
Right.
in that.
Did Noel want to make it in America? He was taking it seriously?
Yeah, Noel absolutely wanted to make it in America. And the fact that it all went wrong at that gig in LA made him even more pissed off than he had been about the Amsterdam incident.
So Noel leaves the tour in the end, goes to San Francisco, ends up coming back.
Yeah.
Having written Talk Tonight in the meantime.
I mean, it was a proper mystery. He'd gone, and for a few days, no one knew where he'd gone. So it became like a crime mystery. It's needle in a haystack situation, and we had practically no clues. And again, because no one was really on mobile phones, and there wasn't the internet, tracking people was difficult. I had a call that night or the following day on my phone, the same phone that I'd had that initial call from Alan after he'd found Oasis, like my home phone in my flat, where the person rang off without leaving a message. There was just a sigh that sort of sounded like no.
Yeah.
But back then you couldn't just phone and find out the number that had last called you. But eventually, I think through the tour manager, they worked out that he could be in San Francisco because of the girl that he'd got off with the night before. The girl that Talk Tonight is about.
Yeah.
It works out in the end.
It works out in the end.
But it's a long way to get there.
Tim Abbott went out there to talk him round. But really, for those few days, it felt like the band were over.
Yeah.
Because one, we didn't initially know where he was, and we didn't know whether we'd be able to talk him round.
So when they get back, Cigarettes and Alcohol comes out as a single. So on the album, Sad Song is a track that was only on the vinyl. And obviously Oasis become known for their many B-sides that don't make the records, etc. Did you get any indications of just how prolific Noel Gallagher was in this period?
Well, yeah, absolutely, because he was constantly coming up with new songs,
Yeah, he'd just walk in with a new one.
Yeah. I mean, it would happen all the time, and it was quite incredible. But most of the time when you hear demo tapes of bands in the early stages of their lives, they've got 3 songs.
Yeah.
That initial demo tape had 10 songs on it, and they were all great. And he just kept writing these solid gold songs through 93, 94, 95. And he couldn't go wrong,
So the non-album single, Whatever, arrived shortly before Christmas. That reaches number 3. The band finished 1994 with a gig at Middlesbrough Town Hall.
Yeah.
But it's in the February of 1995 that the band win the Brit Award for Best Newcomer. When did you first see the signs of a rivalry with Blur?
I think that goes back longer. It goes back to sort of probably spring '94.
Okay.
Inevitably, when you're working with musicians, you talk about what people like and what people don't like. And none of us were fans of Blur.
Right. Because Blur did like Oasis originally, didn't they?
Yes,
they
did.
talked them up a bit, yeah.
Yeah, they did. But, it was... Yeah, I never got them. When Enemy did the press conference for Creation Undrugged...
Yes.
And there was a panel with Mark and Andy out of Ride and Sice and Martin out of the Boo Radleys and Noel and Liam. And Noel and Liam stole the show when they were a much smaller band to the other two. John Harris and the Enemy lot took us up to Camden and took us to the Good Mixer just to kind of see what would happen. And we went in. Bono goes to the piano, starts playing that Small Faces song. They sang a song to that tune, which was which they sung in a fake Cockney accent. Wouldn't it be nice to be a fucking Cockney? Wouldn't it be nice to be a fucking Blur? And they sang it at the piano in the Good Mixer, which is the home of Blur.
Of Blur, yeah.
So I would say that from the very start, there was some antagonism.
So all those people who go to the Good Mixer thinking they're having a drink where Blur and Oasis used to hang out, I think that's Oasis's only ever trip there. I think they were banned.
Yeah. I mean, it literally lasted a minute, however long it took.
So they're in there for 60 seconds.
Yeah, but they left an impact.
In the same week, April 95, that they record the live film Live by the Sea, they play easily their biggest gig to date at the 13,000 capacity Sheffield Arena. How significant was it for a Creation band to be headlining a huge arena on their debut album?
Well, it had never happened at Creation before.
Yeah, nowhere near, I don't think.
Yeah, nowhere near, and it was just a very clear indicator of how big Oasis were and how big Creation were by that point. And it was also a realisation of how much bigger it could get. You know, because they could have sold out Sheffield Arena several times.
Yeah. Supported by Pulp and Ocean Colour Scene. Yeah. I think it's the debut of Don't Look Back in Anger too.
Yes,
acoustic version, yeah.
So. Yeah, it was. And also Pulp did a brilliant job because they really had to come in last minute because I think it was the Verve were meant to do it. And
Pulp are good at coming in last minute. They did it at Glastonbury
they've done that at Glastonbury as well, haven't they? But I think either the Verve split up or there was an injury or something and Pulp came in. And they were great, of course, because they are great, you know.
Was it a natural progression to move up to these larger venues?
Yeah, it was a natural progression, but also a test, because it's one thing being able to, you know, play the Forum and blow people away, but to sort of step up to 13,000 people is a hell of a step.
Yeah.
You know, just sonically, visually, trying to connect with the audience. It's a whole new ball game, I would say. But they did it, and in a way, I guess that was a test that led to them doing Earl's Court, which was twice the size. They never really had a Brixton Academy stage.
No. I don't think Oasis have ever played Brixton Academy.
No, Noel supported Paul Weller, but I think that's the only thing they've done. Yeah, there might have been a charity thing. But, you know, most indie bands kind of plateau out at the Brixton Academy stage.
Right, yeah.
and not knocking Brixton Academy, I've seen some of the greatest gigs I've ever seen there, and I love that venue. But, you know, so many bands you see just stay at that level for the rest of their career.
Some might say comes out, goes to number one. But shortly afterwards, Tony McCarroll leaves the band, following the Top of the Pops appearance.
Yeah.
Had this been a long time coming, Tony leaving?
There had been flashpoints leading up to it. They had, you know. So I suppose it was always likely, but, you know, we didn't know that it would happen, but it did. And I guess, you know, that marks a new era, undoubtedly.
Yeah, so that's kind of the end of the first phase of Oasis. So there we go.
Really, yeah.
True or false, did this happen or not? The wine glass on the cover of Definitely Maybe is actually filmed with Ribena.
Yes, Ribena all the way.
Do you know why?
No, I don't.
Because apparently red wine often looks black in photos.
That's
so there we
interesting.
go.
All right.
So there's that. There's
I'm
that
going
little...
to throw a seed of doubt in here.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
Go on. That's what Michael Spencer Jones says anyway.
Right, okay. Well, no, I mean, he would know. He would know more than anyone. But shouldn't it really have been Vimto?
From
Being
the north.
Mancunian, you'd think Vimto
Yeah, but it was
would
shot
be there.
down in the south, wasn't it? So
No, it's Bonehead's house.
It's pretty hard to find.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
When I was a kid, we used to go to Manchester every school holidays because my mum's family were all up there, and we used to come back with bottles and bottles of Vimto.
On the TV, on the cover of Definitely Maybe, Mark, there is a clip from a Sergio Leone spaghetti western. Is it Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Fistful of Dollars, or is it For a Few Dollars More? Which of the three?
I don't know, so I'm going to plump for the middle.
No, it's Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So there we go.
I was going to go for that. Never mind.
Obviously, there is a photo of Rodney Marsh on the cover with the Gallaghers being Manchester City fans. True or false, there's also a picture of George Best visible on the cover.
I'm going to say no. Or am I going to say, is there a copy of the Wedding Present album there which has George? I'm going to say yes. I've changed my mind.
What do you think, Johnny? Do you know this?
There is a picture of George Best on there. Yeah.
Because Bonehead was a United fan.
Okay.
And because he was Irish, they basically let him on there.
So I did poorly there. I'm sorry about that.
That's all good, Mark. That's all good. Right, two left. Who headlined the King Tut's Wawa Hut gig? Was it 18-wheeler, Denim, or White Out?
18-wheeler.
Yeah, true. Also on the bill were Boyfriend, who Johnny has mentioned, and Sister Lovers from Manchester.
I went to Blackpool to a Labour Party conference thing. It must have been when it was a Creation, I'm sure it was a Creation Records sponsored event. 18-wheeler were the headliners. And I don't remember much about it because I got there very late and the party had finished. It was early doors. But I did sit on Steve Coogan's rather nice leather jacket.
Oh, well, there we go.
And I remember the feel of it. I thought, oh, this isn't the leather jacket you get on the market.
When Oasis first played Glastonbury, June 94, the next band on was Echo Belly. Is that true or not?
I don't want to be famous. No, it wasn't Echo Belly.
It was. It was. They were the second band on after Credit to the Nation, followed by Echo Belly. So there we go.
Yeah, I would have put it the other way round, but there you go.
Must have been on about 1 p.m.
I think they also followed. Echo Belly also followed Oasis in that first New York gig in the June.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Last question, Mark.
I was just going to say, Simon, a trade tour where you will be shortly. One of Echo Belly is a regular attendee. There we go.
All right. Well, there we go. It's a good bit of trivia for Walthamstow.
Yeah.
Friend of the book club, Matt Sankey, who designed our logo for the podcast and the book club, is on the cover of Some Might Say, posing as a beggar. True or false?
False.
True. He's on the cover, yeah. So he was worked with Brian Cannon on all these Oasis covers.
So it was micro dot
as Matt
rather than
Micro
creation.
Micro dot, yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant. Right, at the end of each episode, we each recommend something you've liked for a long time, something you've recently discovered. Johnny, what would you like to recommend?
Well, what I'm going to go for is a record. I'm a music obsessive still.
Yeah.
A record that really got under my skin in 2023, and it's still there working its magic at the end of 2024. And it feels really great that in my old years, I can still get obsessed and involved in a record, really. And it's Emma Tricker's Aspirin Sun.
All right. I haven't heard that. Have you heard that, Mark?
Well, again, I was pouring through Johnny's Instagram account and I saw that she played. Was it the Albert in Brighton recently?
Yeah, it was in the early summer, I think it was. But yeah.
So yeah, I went and had a little listen. Well, very good.
It's a mind-blowing record with so many sort of layers and textures to it, and so many different sounds, from acoustic guitars to electric guitars to Steve Shelley from Sonic Youth on the drums, and mariachi trumpets.
Wow. Well, we're going to give it a closer listen.
Check that one out.
And Emma's amazing voice and her really amazing lyrics.
You're not doing her PR, are you, Johnny?
No, not at all.
Incredible.
Mark, what have you got?
Black Doves, Netflix.
Haven't seen it.
Keira Knightley.
I've never seen any of your TV recommendations. I don't really watch telly.
It's a spy thing set in London. Keira Knightley stars with Ben Whishaw, and it's fun.
Brilliant.
All the performances, but there are two girls in there, two young actresses who I've not seen before who play assassins.
Look them up. I'm going to go on the creation theme. Rings Around the World, Super Furry Animals. Heard it the other week. It's a great album. So
fantastic band. Yeah.
Yeah, I love all their albums, but that one popped up, and I thought I'm going to mention that one.
Johnny, we're so grateful for your time. Much more time.
Thank you for giving this much time.
And I did want to ask one final question. Are you going to see Oasis in the summer of 2025?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be really interesting. It could go any way, but it will be a spectacle.
And I'm so pleased that's a definitely and not a definitely maybe. So thanks to Johnny Hopkins.